Cider fans, Justin from the Cider Guys here, and welcome to our next episode of our Meet the Maker series. Now in this episode we're going to be talking to the guys from Bull City Ciderworks. We'll be talking to John and Andy. We'll be talking to John in their Lexington location and then Andy in their Durham location. So we hope you enjoy it. As always, if you want to find out more about our Meet the Maker series, please click the link above my head here and that will send you to our first episode where we tell you a little bit about what it is. As always, if you want to keep up with what we're doing and where we're at, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And as always, please follow us on YouTube so that you can keep up with all our latest videos. Now, one thing I want to talk to you about is at the very end of the John episode, where you will see he'll talk about a little preview of something that we've got coming up that we're super excited about. So make sure you stick through the at least the John piece for that so you can get that little tidbit of information. Now, without further ado, here's our Bull City Ciderworks interviews. We hope you enjoy, and as always, from the Cider Guys, cheers.
Alright, hey Cider fans, I'm Mark with the Cider Guys and we are here at Bull City Ciderworks in Lexington. We're here with John and he's going to speak with us a little bit. John, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
First off, we'd like to know a little bit of background about Bull City Ciderworks.
Yeah, for sure. The whole idea and concept really was born out of home brewing. So one of my former partners and I, we were both home brewers. I made some really terrible beer, and then we started making some cider, and the first couple of batches weren't very good either. And then we figured out exactly how to make decent cider. And so once we had that, really saw there was an opportunity in the market because most of the cider that you could get either was super sugary, made by beer companies, kind of macro-produced cider, or super dry was kind of the other extreme of what you would find that's more wine style, wine-like kind of format, pricing, everything about it. So we really wanted to come up with something that was very approachable, very drinkable, and fun. Right. So I think we achieved that.
Yeah. So you spoke a little bit about your background. How about the company's background? I know that the company started in Durham.
Yep.
And had to move to Lexington. Can you talk a little bit about?
Yeah, so we started initially in a four bay garage in Durham, North Carolina. So we had about 1,600 square feet. We actually started in about, I guess, 400 or 800 square feet is what we really started in. Then we added a 350 square foot tap room. So for the people that remember that, it's kind of like, I always make the comparison, it's kind of like Wrigley Field. From the viewer's perspective, from the patron's perspective, like, oh, that place was so cool. It had that rustic charm and kind of underground vibe to it. We didn't have appropriate plumbing in the tap room. We had a shower in the bathroom that creeped people out because it's also how we plumbed the sink from the tap room through an air duct into that shower. So people were like, oh, the whole place was so cool. Much like people think Wrigley Field is cool, and then the players and the announcers at Wrigley Field think, oh, it's it's kind of a dump from the facilities perspective if you actually have to operate and work there. And we had the typical same kind of trials of trying to operate in an old garage with inadequate plumbing and everything else. So ultimately, our original location is where the new police headquarters is for the city of Durham. So that's why we had to move from the original location, which ended up being great for us. We only moved about a quarter mile away. We wanted to stay on that side of town in Durham, and the new facility there is 5,000 square feet, and about 1,000 square feet or 20% of it's dedicated to production. We would have stayed and expanded the old spot, but obviously with the city kind of buying everything, we just had to move. The only thing I regret, of that move was just the timing of it. We were supposed to be in February, so we closed at the old location in April. We were supposed to close originally in December of 2016, and we should have been opened, 2015, and we should have been open at the new spot in February of the next year. Instead, construction delays and permitting with the city of Durham, we ended up shut down in Durham for about 14 months, which was really painful for our company from a cash flow perspective because we do a lot of business in Durham. We have a lot of fans and patrons. That's obviously where we started the business, and Durham continues to grow and kind of support their craft scene. Right. So really, it was tough times for us. Luckily, at the same time, we had been working an event here, the barbecue competition, not the barbecue festival that more people know about, but there's actually a barbecue competition that happens in April. It didn't happen last year because some fire and stuff that happened around here in town, but we'd been here, we were working that competition and met some people, and I actually grew up, in this area, in the Lexington, North Carolina area, and they're like, hey, the city has all the old furniture factory buildings, you should take a look at them, maybe it's something that would work out for you guys for production. And so our original spot that we looked at in Durham, so we were in the four bay garage. We had actually looked at a spot that's over in the Golden Belt area where Highwire just went, and now they're doing condo developments and stuff over there. But through some lack of meeting of the minds with the old landlord, we couldn't locate in that space, because that would have been probably a 20,000 square foot space that we would have taken, 12 to 20,000 square feet, and have done all the production in Durham, kept all production in Durham, and just had the tap room. But that didn't work out. We still weren't, we hadn't found the new place that we ultimately ended up going to in Durham, and we had been here for this event in Lexington, and so we came back the following week and I toured the old furniture factory. So this was part of the Lexington Home Brands Furniture Factory. It was the Dixie plant. When it was fully operational, it had about 6,500 people working here making furniture. The plant had closed down in 2007, and the city bought all the buildings, so they had about 1 million square feet of space here, and so we came and toured everything. Some of it was in various states of disrepair, but this building was actually good for us. It was actually their finished goods storage. So after the furniture was made, it's where they actually stored in boxes before it went out on tractor trailers to furniture stores. So we toured this. It was vacant. We came in. We did probably around $150,000, $175,000 worth of plumbing, electrical, just making it a facility that had water, drains, all the things that you need for production of cider, beer, or anything like that. So yeah, we've made a lot of improvements to the space, and it's worked out really well for us. And really, the nice part is it kind of opened us up and gave us a dual presence. So not just the triangle, but also, really exposing ourselves to the triad market as well. And as a result, those are our two biggest markets. Our biggest market is still the triangle, where we started, certainly from a retail basis, but also from a distribution perspective. And then the triad's our second largest market for distribution. So,
cool.
Yeah.
So you spoke a little bit at the beginning about the type of ciders you make. Can you elaborate more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So our process is a little bit different. A lot of cider that you find on the market, even some of the craft ciders, they're still going to engage in some level of back sweetening. So meaning they're going to ferment dry. They're going to start with raw apple cider. All cider pretty much starts the same. I guess some of it does technically start with concentrate, which we don't use. We use pure 100% single strength pressed apple. So we bring it in, we start the fermentation, but we actually let our fermentation only go for about 4 days, and then we stop the fermentation early. And so by doing that, we don't let the yeast consume all the sugars in the liquid, and so we leave a little residual sugar there. We stop the fermentation by cooling the tanks, and then we kind of process, filter the cider, and turn it into, if it's off main, we don't do anything to it. If it's cherry tart or smooth hop or rise up, some of the favorites that people have, then after we make that off main base, we use that as the input to then create and craft either dry hop it if it's going to be smooth operator, or add Montmorency cherries if it's going to be cherry tart, or ginger if it's going to be rise up, or any of the other kind of wild combinations of flavor and things that we decide to do. So that kind of keeps it fun, but a big difference of it, by doing it that way, we have a lot less sugar content. So our off main is about the lowest sugar content that you can find of any cider on the market. So a 12-ounce bottle is going to have 8 grams of sugar and 160 calories, and that's compared to a lot of macro ciders. If you're looking at Angry Orchard or Woodchuck, for example, they're going to range somewhere between 16 and 32 grams of sugar, and they're going to have somewhere around 200 to 220 calories. Yeah. So big difference. From our perspective, we really wanted to keep, let the beverage and let the apple itself shine through, and so keep it as natural as possible and not bastardize, with a bunch of crazy amounts of sugar or anything else to it. Also, by doing it, it keeps our ABV a little bit higher because we're not adding in a neutral liquid to it. Right. So, yeah.
Cool. So we have our menu board up here. Can you talk a little bit about your core ciders, and then maybe talk a little bit about some of your seasonal ciders? Which one do you repeat?
Absolutely. So if you're looking at our core cider, obviously our flagship is the off main, and that still is about 50 to 60% of everything that we sell is off main. Now, it's much different in the tap room. When folks are coming in, they're doing flights or buying pints. Obviously they want to do all the flavor bomb, kind of crazy. Oh, seasonal is like beatnik or cranberry or something like that. But with distribution and being sold at grocery stores now, we got placements in 2018 with a lot of the chains like Harris Teeter, Lowe's Food Lion, places like that. They still sell a ton of off main as 6-packs. So that's why we end up doing so much off main. And then you also have a lot of accounts like breweries where maybe they're a little less apt to dive in and say, hey, let's have a crazy flavor like beatnik, or let's have Sasquatch or something like that. They just want an option that's gluten-free and something for people who don't like beer at their tap room. So that's also, breweries are great accounts for cideries actually from a distribution perspective. But the off main, that's our core cider. Like I was saying, that's the thing that we make and actually use as a base for a lot of the other ciders that we come up with on an annual basis. Sweet Carolina, that was our second cider that we came up with. Literally just a sweeter version of the off main that's manipulated with adding honey. When we first started, the first place we got honey was from Heavenly Bees in Durham or Hillsborough, and then we've gotten honey from Vintage Bee in RTP area, and then now we source some of it out of Pennsylvania as well. But it's a great cider for people looking at something that's a little bit sweeter, still not going to be the sugary sweetness of your macro ciders that are mass produced, really that raw sweetness that you get out of honey. So it's a very nice palate pleaser. Rise Up, people love that. It's a great mix, and that's something that's really cool with the ciders, not just the things that we already offer that we're kind of making on a seasonal or limited basis, but people really like to switch it up and mix ciders, and it's not something that you necessarily engage in at breweries, because you're not like, hey, can you throw some IPA on my lager and my Pilsner, can you put a splash of that in it too, because it'll probably taste like garbage. But with a cider, it's really fun. You can manipulate it a lot of the flavors, and the point of all that is the Rise Up's an excellent mixer for a lot of the different things. So people like to take the Rise Up, mix it with cherry tart, or the Rise Up, mix it with the Cran Pappy or the Beatnik or something like that, because it's really kind of very malleable in terms of mixes and cider mocktails, if you will. The Cherry Tart, it's a fantastic cider that we make. Originally, this was going to be a seasonal cider in August of 2014, and it's been on ever since. So it never came off. It's actually one of our top-selling ciders, and definitely the second highest selling cider that we have in the triad market. So Winston-Salem, Greensboro, High Point. But it also won double gold at Glint Cap. So one for best fruited cider in the country, and I guess it's actually an international competition. I think there were 2,000 submissions or something this year. So that was a big award for us. We actually got 2 double golds. One was the Cherry Tart, and we actually got double gold for best barrel aged cider as well, or wooded cider, which was our Slow Ride. And we actually have another version coming out that's Defiant Pig, and then we use the Defiant Whiskey spin spirals from their 100% single malt. And I think that's actually better than what we just won with for the for the double gold at the Glint Cap. Smooth Operator, this is an interesting one. This is a core cider as well. I think it really kind of hybridizes, and for a lot of people that were more reluctant to dive into cider and really just like craft beer, it kind of bridges that gap. It's not going to give you the bitterness that you're going to get because it's dry hopped. We're not boiling the hops, so the acids aren't being released the same as if you're making an IPA. So by doing that, you get all the hop smell and all the freshness to it, but you don't get any of the bitterness. At the same time, because it's got that hoppy profile, it is kind of that bridge, or what draws people in, some people at least, to their first experience with cider. And they're like, oh, this is actually pretty good, and kind of takes them from the beer category into, hey, well, this is pretty good, let me try some of the others. So it's kind of a gateway drug for some of the beer drinkers, I would say. Orange You a Hippie, this was originally slated to be a seasonal, but then also became a core cider. And from a distribution perspective, going through chain accounts or grocery stores as 6-packs, it's actually our second highest selling cider behind Off Main. So we go through about 500 cases a month of Orange You a Hippie out to distribution to grocery stores. But it's really nice. It's kind of tart because of the hibiscus. It has that rosé color to it, which has obviously been the buzzword of the last year. Everybody wants to do rosé everything, but it's something we were doing 3 years ago. And we just continue to do it. So it kind of gives you the rose color from the hibiscus, and then we actually use orange peel in it, which gives you kind of a little balance of bitterness, less fruity than using actual citrus fruit, like using orange juice or oranges themselves. But really nice flavor to it, great look to it, very beautiful cider. Definitely recommend trying it. But part of what we do is try to have ciders for everyone. So not everybody's going to like that because of the tartness that you get out of the hibiscus. But that's why we have all the other ciders too. You can find something that you like. The Sasquatch, that's a seasonal that we did last year. In 2017 for the first time, and then did again in 2018. So it's a late fall, winter seasonal that we do. Butternut squash, maple syrup, and then Carolina Reapers, and a little bit of ghost pepper powder in it as well. Really nice. We try to keep at least one, if not two, kind of hot ciders, spice ciders with pepper on at all times. It's kind of a unique flavor profile. You don't see as people do some of that with beers, obviously, as well. Birdsong's Jalapeno Pale Ale is probably one of the most popular beers in that kind of spice category, but with the cider, we really love the way this turned out. Kind of gives you butternut squash. I think is something that, on the face of it, probably isn't enticing to people. They're like, oh, butternut squash in the cider, but it actually has a really nice character and flavor profile to it, with a little bit of heat on the finish, which I like. The Beatnik, I think this is one of the most unique ciders that we make. I don't know how many are being made in the country or how many people are diving into using beets, but it's one that if I could have people try it and have people taste it, we could probably bottle it and sell it. But the problem is that if I put it in bottles and it actually was on a shelf, people would be like, it's beets, no way, I'm not getting it. So we see a lot of people that are like, oh, I hate beets, I don't want to eat beets, I don't want to drink beets, and then they try it, and it's surprising because it's totally opaque.
Yeah, it's one of our favorites, and we were surprised with how good it is.
Yeah, it gives you a very opaque look to it. You have this perception of like, oh wow, it's going to be thicker of a mouthfeel than it actually is, but it still has that great cider mouthfeel to it. So it's a really fun cider, and you obviously have natural sugar content out of beets anyway, so it ends up really kind of a balanced profile. I really enjoy the Beatnik, and I think it's probably one of the most shocking ciders for people because they try it and they're like, oh, that's actually really good. Also mixes well with Rise Up. Compassion Fruit, this is one of my all-time favorites, and really, I think we've got to do a better job of kind of promoting the message behind that. It was originally released in 2016 as part of a campaign. It was Trivia Night for United Way, and so that's the name. We actually donated $1 per pint to United Way out of the Compassion Fruit sales. So I think what we're going to do is try to focus on a Compassion Fruit series and do more donations to charities, and probably bring in or put some applications or RFPs out to see who would want to get on board, and select some charities or things that are important to us and our Bull City Ciderworks family here, and do some good. But that was the whole genesis and the naming convention of it. It just also happens to be one of my favorite ciders. It's passion fruit cider with just a little touch of honey, but that brilliant just tartness that you get out of passion fruit is a great flavor. Also mixes well with several things. But that has typically been a seasonal that comes in kind of late summer. This year we are actually going to bottle that. So we are going to do a line of premium 4-packs that will come out this year as well. So, right now some of our traditional bottled offerings are obviously the Off Main in 6-pack, Orange Hippie in 6-pack, Cherry Tart in 4-pack, which based on the volume now, we're able to get that pricing down. So it was a little elevated cost, and therefore pricing hitting most shelves at around $12.99 or $13.99. Cherry Tart now, if you go on the market, find it at Food Lion, Total Wine places, it should be around the $9.99 price point for 4-pack. And by going to the 4-pack on some of the premium cost ciders, the ones that are expensive to make, like Compassion Fruit, like Cherry Tart, things like that, 4-pack makes more sense on the economics, and I think that we'll be able to price most of those around $9.99. But it'll be really fun. This year we're going to get the Gooseberry Galaxy out in 4-pack, which was our Galaxy Hop and Kiwi. We're going to have the Compassion Fruit out. We will potentially have the Steep South out in 4-packs, which is first time bottling. Sweet Carolina is probably going to get bottled this year as well, which is a unique offering that people have a long time asked, like, oh, we got to get the honey cider, got to get the Sweet Carolina. So we'll hopefully get that out in bottles this year as well. Jack and Oak will be back in bottles, and we're going to see possibly one of the hot ciders like Spooky Mango or something will come out in 4-pack. But premium 4-pack line will be one of our growth avenues for 2019 for sure, of kind of focusing on, look, how do we get some of the flavor bombs like Upside Down and some of the others that I just mentioned to people, because they've done exceptionally well in the tap room, and it's things that we can therefore take out to the greater market. Like I said, Beatnik, if everybody could try it, would probably do well and sell in the 4-packs, but being that it has beets in it, it'll probably never get bottled because we can't have people try it. Some of the other ones that we have in Lexington tap room right now, we got a little bit of the Spruce Springsteen left, which is our Christmas tree cider. So literally, we steam and take the needles off of Fraser fir, macerate them, put them in the tank. So it kind of gives you that piney, citrusy, almost really like junipery and almost gin-like flavors to it. So it's really nice. We did reserve a small amount of it that we're actually going to pump into a gin barrel. So that'll be coming out probably in the next few months. So we should get the barrel this week. That's also another avenue or the thing that we want to focus on for 2019 as well, is really upping our barrel aging program. We've obviously done a couple releases in the past, the Slow Ride, the Defiant Pig, the Promiscuous, but like right now we've got 2 barrels, rum barrels from Raleigh Rum that we're running Spooky Mango in. We're going to get some tequila barrels, some Chardonnay barrels, really elevate the barrel aging program, and probably have a members barrel club that kind of get first priority to buying some of the special limited bottlings of it, as well as maybe like special mugs or something like that. So we're going to take a look at that and probably launch something with regards to the barrel club in the next month and a half.
Cool.
So
exciting.
yeah, it's gonna be super exciting. I'm super excited for it. I think obviously the flavors as we have them are really unique. I think we do a great job of distinguishing, giving very defined flavors, and all the ciders taste different, and hopefully everybody thinks they taste good. Some of them aren't winners, but we try to keep most of them as winners. But I think cider does really well with barrel aging, wood aging, kind of taking unique properties that you get out of those, whether they're old bourbon barrels or tequila or rum, or even just neutral barrels. So it's really something that I think can kind of take some of our cider making and our offerings to the next level. So it'll be fun 2019 doing that, and really stepping that program up. So I'm excited for that. The Cran Pappy, that's our cranberry cider. That's kind of our fall winter major offering. That and Cardinal Sin just below it. But the Cran Pappy, I really like that. I thought it turned out great this year. Level of cranberries that we use in it. I think we altered a little bit this year, and I really like how the color came out, how the flavor came out. With that one, it kind of gives you that, you have higher tannin content in cranberries, which lends itself, that's how you get dryness out of different things. And so I really like the tart and the dryness that you get out of the Cran Pappy, but it's balanced where it's not, like drinking cotton balls where it's like totally dry. It's really, we try to do everything that we do balanced, so that it becomes very drinkable, and, they're fun to check out and try by the pint and doing the flights. Cardinal Sin, obviously a fan favorite. A lot of people liken it to, it's like apple pie. It's a great offering. We use 2 different types of cinnamon in it, a Saigon and a Ceylon cinnamon. So that's kind of using that blend, how we get that robust cinnamon profile out of it. So it's a fun cider. And it's about gone from the season. So we just finished, we're out of bottles of it, so now we'll move back in to rise up 6-packs for seasonal bottles at the grocery stores and places like that. So Cardinal Sin will disappear for a few months. Paranormal, that's an interesting one. It's personally not my favorite cider that we've made, but people really like it because the advent of the pear in it. It's got pear and a little bit of lemon. What I want to do with we'll probably make the Paranormal again in its current state, but I also in 2019 we're going to do at some point, probably middle of the year, maybe heading into the fall, an actual perry. So the same way that we would do off Main, just let someone try, hey, here's a base perry. I think we do a really nice job with our off Main and how drinkable and kind of approachable it is. So I think we can take some of those same principles that we use, our yeast selection, our fermentation mechanisms and methods, and apply it to perry and get something really unique too. So that'll be fun for 2019 as well. Southpaw, this was really fun. This was Mo's idea, and we'll catch up with Mo here in a little bit, but it's the pawpaw fruit, which apparently is indigenous to this area. It's the largest native fruit indigenous fruit to North America, I believe. I think Mo was saying, but I had never heard of pawpaws until a couple years ago, and literally never tasted a pawpaw until December when we were making the Southpaw cider. And we had a great event down in Durham. We had a pawpaw peeling party because it's also called the Hillbilly Mango or Redneck Mango. It's kind of like a mango banana hybrid in terms of flavor profile. And it's kind of a tough skin fruit, about the shape of a mango, I guess, shape and size of a mango, kind of, and it has big pits or seeds in it, right? So we had a cool pawpaw harvesting and crushing party down in Durham. So we had about 50 people out and had 600 pounds of pawpaw fruit, and everybody just kind of cut them up and helped us take the seeds out, because the seeds have some sort of toxin in them that will apparently upset your stomach, according to the farmer. So he was like, you want to make sure you don't eat the seeds. So we made sure we got all the seeds out, and then just kind of went through a normal process of pressing and getting the juice out and then pumping it in. But really nice cider. I like it a lot. I want to get a pint of it at the bottom of the keg, because kind of like compassion fruit, you'll get some separation in the keg, and so like the last pours of compassion fruit will come in real thick and just full of fruit, right? And then people want to fight over getting the last growler or pints out of those kegs. And Southpaw does the same thing with kind of things coming out of suspension a little bit. So I'm excited to try some of the end of that. That'll be fun. But it's a great cider, and pawpaw fruit it was great. Like I said, I never tried it until December, and I thought it was fantastic. So I am going to be on the lookout for pawpaws when they come out in 2019. And then Steep South. This was a core cider, and came off for a little bit, but it's back on as a permanent offering, and a core cider for us. So this is a great kind of take on our take on a southern style, southern tea type cider. So it's our base off Maine, and then we steep it with just black tea. I wish I had some crazy story for you that it was like procured somewhere neat, or dried somewhere neat in some kind of specialty, but it's really just like Lipton black tea. And we just buy big bags of it, we steep it, and then we put a little bit of honey in it too to kind of sweeten it up. So it's really kind of nice balance, because you get kind of that dry property and the tannins again that you get out of tea, and then kind of lighten that up with some sweetness from the honey. So really cool offering. But yeah, we try to keep year-round, somewhere between 14 and 16 offerings of hours on draft at all time, which is a lot. It's a lot. But we've got great ideas and great recipes, and you can always find new and exciting ones. So we'll have some unique and new offerings for 2019 for sure, and we'll bring back some of the classics and things that people love, like Upside Down, the pineapple cider, or Ludicrous, or Mango Balada, that people really love for our summer offerings. So we'll keep some of the mainstays, kind of highlight limited release seasonal things that people really loved, and have those on a limited basis, but we'll always be looking for what are some unique and different things that we can do. And for example, right now, I guess here in the next month, we'll have a release that we did with one of our original Kickstarter donators, Ken Strode. So we actually did a hybrid of limber twig apples and we did limber twigs and Arkansas blacks, and so that should be really nice cider. It's going to be drier, and then we're actually going to barrel age a portion of it as well. So it'll be a lot of fun. But I think it's not just what can we take off Maine and do with that, but it's also what are some unique things that we can do, and that's what we really want to focus on in our Durham location for the production there. So our smaller batch production there is really kind of a launch pad and testing workshop, if you will, of what are some cool things that we can do in cider. Maybe it's unique ferments, unique blends of apples, maybe it's single varietals of apples, and we'll obviously do some of the other unique things too, like are there unique spices or fruits or ways to manipulate it as well. And then obviously in Lexington we still do, we'll do some small batch and pilot things that we do here for sure, but a lot of what we do here is kind of our bigger production that supplies the tap rooms and supplies, distribution and things like that. So it's really a lot of fun, two definitely unique sides of our business.
So building off what you've spoken about, going into premium 4 bottles and barrel aging, can you talk a little bit more about how you see the growth of Bull City going forth? Are you thinking about multiple locations? Are you having more in grocery stores and establishments like that, or how are you growing?
And I think that's obviously we had phenomenal growth last year, actually the last 2 years. I mean, so if you looked at 2017, obviously we didn't have our Durham tap room open in 2016 because of the whole moving locations and everything there. So I mean, we did over 100% growth in 2017 over 2016, and then in 2018 though we still were up about 50% year-over-year growth, and that is really just kind of continued success and pushing in Durham. We have a lot of following there. People continue to move to the area, so we have new customers that are coming in, not people that are coming into the area, and so they're trying to check out all the craft scene and everything in Durham. So that's part of the growth for sure. And then part of it, I think, is you still have that growth in the cider market overall, right? So folks are still just finding out about cider, just as yourselves just last year, right? Or maybe before that, but really kind of engaging in it last year. So, there's a lot of still fuel and a lot of runway for the cider market overall, and that's certainly going to fuel some of the growth. And certainly where we're located in Durham, they keep building apartments around us. So that's been a great thing to help sales for sure, and I think that'll continue to help fuel the growth there. And I think the other part about that location is we also just really try to get engaged with events there, and what are the cool things that are bringing our community together. And I think that's part of it. One thing for sure, when people come in, I was talking to a couple. I was working the bar down in Durham on Friday night, and I was talking to a couple about that were down from Virginia, but I've seen them there several times, and they were talking about a place near where they are in Virginia, and how the tap room it had a different feel and vibe to Bull City, and Bull City is their favorite place, and they're like, it's just everything is comfortable here, and I think that really is a hallmark of what we try to do, not only from the liquid standpoint of having very approachable ciders, but we want an environment where people are having fun and people want to come in and everybody's accepted and welcome in our house. And I think we've done a great job at that. We have fantastic staff at both our Lexington and Durham location, and I think that's why, yes, we see a constant flow of new people coming in, experiencing and finding cider, but we do a great job, I believe, with customer retention and people coming back because they had such a great time. So certainly part of fueling growth is doing what you do well, and I think that our team here does a great job at that. Other avenues for growth for us, though, in 2019, certainly it's trying to put some more from the distribution side. We'll focus on that for a second. It's putting out some of those premium 4-packs, continuing to try to forge relationships with chain accounts, and kind of push it that direction on distribution. We won't go into any new states likely in 2019 from a distribution perspective, but we already distribute in South Carolina on a limited basis, and then also obviously statewide in North Carolina, and a little bit of distribution in Atlanta with the Kroger chain there. So at some point we'll try to focus on getting some actual salespeople on the ground in those markets that are farther away, and help grow distribution through those outlets and through that kind of resource. But really distribution, I think the focus will be adding in some of these premium 4-packs and unique offerings that we've had great success with in the tap room that we really want to give to people on the broader market. With the tap rooms themselves, like I said, with Durham, I think it's really focusing on doing what we do really well and continuing to engage with the community and have unique, fun events that bring people out and bring people together. And, like I mentioned with the Paw peeling and processing party, that was a great way that we used our space to bring 50 people out. We sold tickets. They were free tickets. You just had to sign up, but we booked and sold out in no time with 50 people reserving space there. And you just had a load of people having fun together in our space and actually helping us make the cider, truly helping us, because otherwise we would have had one person sitting there for 2 days carving pawpaws and taking out the pits themselves. But I think it's really continued focus on what can we do to tie into our community in Durham, and that'll help fuel the growth there on a year-over-year basis. And obviously having unique and fun ciders certainly never hurts. The more we come out with cool ciders, the more people want to come try them out. And then in Lexington, we're actually going to try to acquire this building. We have an agreed purchase price with the city of Lexington to buy this building, and we're hopefully going to close on it sometime in March or April would be the target. But we know how construction projects work out, so we'll see exactly when we end up closing on the building. But here we want to do some redevelopment and really kind of elevate the aesthetics of the retail space here, and I think that'll fuel a lot of the year-over-year growth from a retail perspective here in Lexington. We'll also make some other modifications for production so that you're here on a brisk January day where it's actually colder in the building. Actually, in the building today, all the cold hasn't creeped in, so it's still a little warmer
cool,
in the building than outside, but it's not much warmer. The warmest place in the building is actually the cold room today. So, and that's at 34 degrees. So, we want to do some modifications here, honestly, for production, just for creature comforts, if you will, so that it's not so cold in the winter, and then in the summer, we'll reach temperatures with all the equipment running and bottling that sometimes it's 110, 115 degrees in here. So, really focusing on making it a better production space in Lexington, but also much better retail space to kind of bring people in. And then beyond that, we are and we will be looking at some additional retail locations. I'm not positive that they'll open in 2019, but there are other markets that we believe we can certainly have some success by having additional, not full-scale production and tap rooms, but tap rooms where we can kind of further, explain our brand and reach people that aren't necessarily in Durham or Lexington or proximate to either location.
Right.
So that'll be certainly something we look at throughout 2019 and into 2020.
Cool.
Yep.
Sounds exciting.
Very exciting. I'm super excited.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about your own growth. What about the cider market in whole? Where do you see the cider market heading?
Yeah, so I think if you look historically, if you look at some of the Nielsen data from a couple years ago, it showed that the market was down a little bit after it basically was doubling and tripling for a few years. At CiderCon last year, I think we had the count at that point was about 850 cideries in America. When we started in North Carolina, it was basically us and Noble, and then any of the other cider being made in North Carolina at that time was actually being made by wineries. So St. Paul Crossing, McRitchie, places like that. And now, if you look at the full spectrum of cideries that we have, we've got about 21, 22 producers of cider in North Carolina now, I believe is what the last count was. But we've certainly had phenomenal growth in North Carolina in the cider market. I think something that we need to focus on collectively is, I think the breweries do a great job of kind of their associations and their guilds of kind of fostering overall growth. And I think with the cideries, our industry is very young, and North Carolina is even younger than it is in some other places. We've really got to have a focus on bringing ourselves together more collectively, doing more things as an industry to kind of help the rising tide for everyone. So that's something that we certainly plan on focusing on. We did an event where we just basically had a meet up with a lot of the cideries from North Carolina in November. That went really well. It ended up being most of our counterparts that are proximate to the Triangle, but we plan on trying to do a couple other events this year where we bring together all the cideries, or as many as we can. We've got a barrel aged and rare cider event on the 2nd of February down in Durham. So we'll have a few cideries from North Carolina out of that as well. But I think that's part of what we need to do as an industry, at least in North Carolina, is focus on some of our collective efforts to try to get more marketability and more notoriety, visibility to the population at large about what cider is and that these companies exist.
Yeah.
And that'll help everybody. And it'll help everybody's retail because people can make destination trips to go check out these places, which for any of Bull City or any of our colleagues in the cider market, your retail is your highest margin. I mean, if we can get all of you here to drink, we make the most money, which helps sustain our business. And it can't be lost that while everything is fun, it's still a business. We have to operate like a business. So anything we can do to kind of push retail, not just for ourselves, but for the whole market, I think would be helpful. So that's got to be an area of focus for the industry growth, I think, in 2019 that we've got to get better at. And like I was saying, if you look back at Nielsen a couple years ago, the market was down a little bit, but if you stripped out the macro ciders, there's tons of growth in the market. It was probably up 40%. And that's taking out your Angry Orchards and your Johnny Appleseeds and things like that. And the reason why is if you strip those out, you'll notice that all the growth is coming from your Bull City type companies. It's Bull City, it's Noble, it's Bold Rock, it's places in other states and other markets. Austin Ciders, it's Blake's, it's places like that down east. So the market is really, the growth is coming from regional and local players as opposed to macro national beer-owned company type players, which is a good thing. It creates a lot of opportunity for a lot of people to go in business and hopefully do well with it. But the market overall, I think, will continue to grow. I mean, by comparison, if there's 850 cideries basically in the country right now, by comparison, the brewery side, there's about 8,000. So there's still a ton of, and I'm not saying that cider's ever going to have 8,000 cideries in the country. We're not, I don't believe. But I think there's still a lot of room to grow as people get introduced to the product category. And that's really one of the biggest things that we fight as an industry is consumer education and awareness, right? Because I think you have people that either have never had cider, they don't know what cider is, or their limited exposure has been relegated to things like Angry Orchard or Woodchuck, and call them out. I mean, they're obviously still part of our industry, but their profile and what they do is very different from what a lot of cideries, local and regional, do. Just like Budweiser does something that is very different from Foothills or any of your local breweries in your local markets, right? Old Hickories and places like that. So the problem is, everybody knows what beer is, and they can understand the varying levels and types and styles of beer. And I think for cider, it's developing that consumer awareness and our own nomenclature so that people understand how to talk about cider. To help the industry overall. But and the other part of it is working events, and we do a lot of events, and our counterparts throughout the state do a lot of events with beer festivals, with wine festivals, any kind of craft beverage festivals, so that people can get exposure and brand awareness. And I think by doing that, it at least reaches some level of the population, because time and time again, if you're out doing a sampling, you go to a grocery store, you're doing a sampling or something, and people are like, oh no, it's cider, I don't do that. And then you let them try it, and they're like, oh, well, that's not what I thought. Yeah. That's not what I expected. And so you see that a lot, which clearly points to the fact of, like I'm saying, you don't have enough consumer awareness and education, or the exposure has been very limited, where it would be like if you had never had beer and I only gave you Budweiser or Bud Light as your reference point for beer, then you may or may not like it, but that would be the only thing that you know. And I think, unfortunately, that's kind of where we are in the cider market, where folks have only had, if they've had cider, they may have only been introduced to a national brand cider, which skews maybe their perception of what cider is as a whole. So I think overall, industry has a lot of work to do, but we've got good leadership at the national level, the United States Cider Association. CiderCon's coming up in a few weeks, but we've got good leadership there, and I think we're doing a lot as an industry to continue that consumer awareness and kind of brand awareness of regional and craft cideries. So I think it'll continue to grow. At what rate? I mean, I don't think it'll continue doubling. Most industries don't continue doubling forever. But I think it should have sustained growth that's at a higher level than craft beer right now for at least several more years. And that's because it's coming off a small base, and you're still exposing a lot of new people to the industry or product category, right? And I think the other thing that with cider, it really resonates with the millennials a lot, and kind of younger drinkers are coming of age. Beer has its own palate, and people either like it or hate it or whatever. But I think cider, it is very approachable if it's done well. Right. And I think that that's part of the unique characteristic that maybe draws in your kind of coming of age drinkers, if you will. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of growth left in the industry for sure. Yeah. And so we hope to be part of that growth, and certainly. Bold Rock obviously started in Virginia, but they've got the Mills River location not far from Sierra Nevada, and they're actually the largest private cidery in the country. But behind them, I think it's us and Noble are kind of neck and neck in terms of overall production as largest cideries in North Carolina, and we started around the same time. So for us, I think there's responsibility as well to help foster that community and help some of the people who are just starting out with their ciders, or looking to get into it and things like that. I mean, we have a responsibility as a leader in our size, and we certainly haven't done everything perfect, which I think there's a level where we can help people out who are getting into the industry of, hey, here are things that we did that were stupid. I might not have all the right answers, but I can certainly tell you some of the wrong answers, and I think there's value in that, and it's incumbent on us, as a leader in our community, in our cider community, to really help a lot of those other participants. So anything we can do, we try to keep a very open book, working with our friends and our counterparts throughout the state. For me, we're not in competition with one another. Like I said, I think there's a rising tide and success that we can all achieve. It doesn't mean that we don't want more shelf space than somebody else, but part of consumer education is working together so that people can understand that. So I'm very open to that. I always have been. I always will be. Because it's how we make our business better, how we make our industry stronger.
So to wrap up, tell us, remind us where you're located, and where all can you be found?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Lexington, in the Triad Market, which is about 25 minutes south of Winston-Salem, is where Lexington is. A lot of people are like, where is Lexington? I guess from a north-south perspective, it's about 25 minutes south of Winston-Salem, and it's about equal distance from Durham and Charlotte, so right off of 85. So our address here, probably easiest in the GPS, is 599 South Salisbury Street. Our actual address is 599 South Railroad Street, but that might take you to a graveyard if you forget to put south in. And if you actually come to the loading dock, that would be the other place it might take you around the backside of the building. So it's actually between 5th and 6th Avenue, right on South Salisbury Street is where you enter our tap room in Lexington. We're open right now just Fridays and Saturdays here. On Fridays from 5 until 10, on Saturdays from noon until 8. We will look, as I was talking about, with expansion and kind of modification of this space, expanding those hours, probably adding Thursday and possibly Sunday to the mix in the next few months. And then in Durham, we're located right downtown as well. So it's 305 South Roxborough Street, and that is just behind the Durham Bulls baseball stadium. It's at the intersection of Roxborough and Dillard Streets. So that's a great location. There's another tenant in the front of the building. We share the parking lot, so people always wonder, like, oh, can I park there? Or they see the 15-minute parking for the to-go stuff out of the wine shop, and I was like, well, you can just park there too. They're not really going to tow you. Or I hope not. We don't want to tow our customers, and I certainly don't want our customers towed. Yeah. But yeah, that's right downtown Durham, great location, and that's open 7 days a week. And for specific hours, depending on what day you want to go, just hit the website. But we open in the afternoon, and 4 or 5 o'clock, depending on the day. And then depending on the day, close somewhere between 10 and 12 at night. So great locations. Come see us at either of those. And then if you're out in the market, you can find us at a lot of the chain accounts. So all the Lowe's Foods have our product. A lot of the food lines in the Triad and Triangle. All the Harris Teeters in the state have our product. Total Wines throughout the state have our product. Whole Foods in most of the state have our product. Ingles in Western North Carolina has our product. So pretty much any of your independent craft, bottle shops that are going to have cider would have our product. Certainly some of the chain accounts that I just called out. And if there's a place where you're not seeing it, then you can certainly email us. Just go to the website, contact info, or call us. It'll probably call me. And we can talk to the distributors and work on getting it wherever you'd like to see it. And one thing that really helps us, and not just us, but a lot of other places, as you're shopping at whether it's chain accounts or independent craft stores, whatever it is, request it from those places. If you're at the grocery store, you don't see it, ask about it. And not just us. And if there's another cider you like or beer, you're not seeing it, ask the people in the store, because if they're getting those requests, they'll hit it into their corporate center and they'll be like, hey, we're getting requests for this, we need to put it in there. And so it makes it a lot easier for us if we're actually seeing the pull through from a consumer demand, as opposed to trying to do it the other way, which is like, hey, let me go talk to corporate and see if we can slam it in these channels and see how it does. So if they know that customers are interested and engaged and they want to see products, then they'll get them. So yeah, if you're not seeing it,
great idea.
Ask us.
All right, John, well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Maybe we'll head back and see a little bit about production.
We'll go check out production, meet Mo. We'll check out the guys doing some bottling. It's a good day here to kind of see a lot of stuff that we're doing, and walking around will make it not so cold. And we're also going to talk about doing the Cider Guys collaboration cider. So we'll see what's up with that.
Sneak peek. All right, thanks, guys.
All right, everyone. So we hope that you caught that little snippet of what we've got coming up here in collaboration with Bull City Ciderworks. Again, we are super excited about it. But I did want to tell you real quick that you're not going to be able to see any of the bottling and stuff that they talked about at the end of that interview. We just didn't have time to film it that day. They had some trouble getting their fresh juice out of the truck, and that kind of delayed a lot of things that were going to happen that day, and we just didn't have time to stick around. But the good thing about it is, if you're interested in that sort of thing, stay tuned, because we will be having more of that whole basically from apple to bottle videos. We'll have that coming up as we go through our little collaboration. So again, we're super excited about it, and we'll be sticking out more posts and everything as that kind of comes along. So just again, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, follow us so you can keep up with it. So without further ado, Here is the Andy portion of our interview.
Alright, Cider fans, we've transitioned from Bull City, Lexington over to Bull City, Durham, and we're here with Andy, who runs this location, and I'm going to let Andy explain where we are.
Yeah, so we are in the backspace here at the Durham Bull City Ciderworks location. It's currently unnamed, so we've been calling it the backspace here, but we do have a small bar. This is actually the original bar from our Elizabeth Street location, which I found out a couple of months ago. This is the actual bar from the Crab Shack that used to be down in Durham.
Wow.
So yeah, we kind of, you know, got a hand-me-down bar for our first location, and now it lives in the backspace here in Durham.
Awesome. All right, so here in Durham, can you explain a little bit about what you do here in Durham?
Yeah, so here in Durham is, this is our sort of flagship facility. We do a lot of business. We have 17 ciders on tap here. We also have a small batch brewing facility. We have 4 tanks here in the back, three large tanks, and then 1 tank that is a smaller tank. I believe the capacity is right around 1,500 gallons. So we're pumping it through pretty quickly, getting stuff in. We do a lot of small batch. I like to call it the sort of the Willy Wonka facility. Like, we're always like testing out small batch stuff before we can put it into large production down in Lexington.
Cool. All right. We've talked about personally before we went on camera about your location and the unique aspect of what you have going on around you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Durham went through, I was actually born in Durham and grew up just right down the road, and in the 90s, and Durham in the early 2000s has gone through this great renaissance. And we are on the east side of downtown, which is just blowing up. We have Bull House Apartments, which is right across the street from us, which is where a lot of our regulars are from. We also have just apartments going up all over the place, and which is really great for me, because the thing that I like to strive for here in this location is I really like to strive for this to be your corner bar. I mean, like I said, I have several regulars that are just from right across the way, and I go out with them. They've had me over to their apartments. I got invited to a Super Bowl party next Sunday last night from one of our regulars I hadn't seen in a long time. So it very much is a community location, and I want to keep extending that to all of the communities that are growing up in this this big boom that Durham's having right now.
Cool. All right, can you talk a little bit about what kind of events you have here?
So the events, we have a lot of different events here. We have the backspace that is available for rent. We've had engagement parties back here. We've had hospice has been back here doing an appreciation event for their contributors. We had a get out and vote event here this year, where we had a group come down and gather back here and then walk downtown and registered a bunch of people to vote, and they came back and had pizza. We also do private tastings back here. We do barrel aging events. We do a employee cider event. We do all kinds. We do a cupcake tasting. We're actually doing that this week, where you get a flight and then a flight of cupcakes, and you taste them side by side. So we do a lot of different things. We're actually really starting to penetrate with our events right now. So people are hearing about us. They're getting out here, and they're having a good time, which is the most important thing, I think.
Awesome. Building off of that, can you maybe talk about a little bit about what may be coming out of this space in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got the thing that I'm the most excited about right now is in the tanks right over there right now in Danny Devito, which is the short squat tank to the left. That's the one that holds pressure. We call him Danny Devito because he's short and he's really tough. But it's the Defiant Pig. And so what that is off main that has been aged over Defiant Pig whiskey spirals for, I believe it was about 14 months. I know it's definitely over a year.
Wow.
But it's currently waiting to be carved, and then we're gonna bottle and label that on Thursday, which I'm super excited about. I haven't hand bottled and labeled anything. I've been assured that I will get tired of it very quickly. But I do that because I've gone down to Lexington before and helped out on the bottling line and done case runs, and it's really fun because to them it's their day-to-day activity, but for me it's a fun novelty thing to do, and so I'm always the really cheery guy, like down there like, this is great guys, and then like try doing it every day. But no, it's we have a really good time. But we've got that in there now. We also have the French Quarter, which is the French Saison yeast, and it's the winner of the bartender cider competition. Erin, she won the competition with her cider, and we have that in one of the tanks right now.
And that's smoked cherry and orange peel, right?
That's smoked cherry and orange peel.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I got to try about that much of it because I was just getting off work in the bar, and I was told that it's about to kick because it's the best one, and to come back and try it. So I got to taste a little bit of it. It was very, very good. So Erin's cider is in there now, and then also we've got the Dubliner, which is coming out right around St. Patrick's Day. So we've got that one fermenting, and then we're gonna let him chill until it's time to finish that one. But Robbie's gonna work his magic in here. He is.
Can you tell us what that is?
Very happy. Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. That one's gonna be sort of a St. Patty's Day surprise.
Okay.
But I've been assured it's been done in smaller batches before, and I've been assured that it's going to be very tasty.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
I'm super excited.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so let's just wrap this up. Can you give us your address here, and can you give us your hours of operation?
Yeah, so it's 305 South Roxborough Street here in Durham, North Carolina. It's 27701 is the zip code. And then we are on a lot of people have problems. We're actually on the back of the building. Wine Feed is in front of us. We get a lot of questions if we can park in the Wine Feed parking lot, and that is also our lot. But our hours of operation, so Monday through Thursday, we're open from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. And then Friday, we're open from 3 to midnight, Saturday, noon to midnight, and then Sunday, noon to 10. And then we also, on Sundays, do yoga at 10:30. So come on and do some yoga and have a cider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So come on down and see these guys. Andy, thank you for taking time out to see us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right. And we encourage you all to come out and try what Bull City has to offer.
Come see me.
Thanks, guys.